Hi all, welcome back. Okay, so a little refresher for many of you and explain why we've got this somewhat creepy picture. Okay, relative and absolute cell referencing. Within Excel, we can use various different curses. I'll cover it with a little example in a minute. And sometimes with the formula, we want the formula to move and change, and that's called a relative. And sometimes we want them to be absolutely fixed. The absolute references, we use dollar signs, and that fixes our cell somewhere. But if I go through it with a little example with you, hopefully it'll make a bit more sense. Okay, just some random numbers and serial killers, just for the sake of it, and what they've spent in the various weeks. We want to work out how much has been spent in each week and how much of these serial killers has spent in total. Every Excel formula starts exactly the same way, with an equals. Without the equals, Excel doesn't know it's got something to do. Then the name of the formula, and then the range it applies to. In this case, we're adding them up, so it's sum. The proper way to do it is capitals, but actually it works with both. And from now going forward, please don't key in any cell references. In this case, it'd be straightforward enough to write H3 ... colon to H10. But when we start referencing things on other sheets, it's called 3D referencing. Just use your mouse and Excel will do all the work for you. So equals sum, the range we're applying it to, enter 313. I'm sure you know this, but I'm just going to cover it off again. You've got three main cursors within Excel. If I want to select a single cell or a range of cells, it's the white one. Once that's selected, if I hover on the bottom or the top, I can move that range or that single cell wherever I want. Important to remember, if you do it properly like that, anything referenced there, all the formulas reconstitute. But the one we're going to use and the one we'll make most use out of, if we're happy enough with our total there, 313, and we just want to fill across, hover over the bottom right-hand corner until it goes black cross and just drag along and it fills it all out for you. Little caveat on all that. If you're on a Mac or the online version of Excel, your pointy cross turns into a little white grabby hand, but it does the same thing. And if I put my formula on, and for those of you who don't know this little trick, I'll just put a little text box underneath, text box. To toggle your formulas on and off, it's Control plus, and I'm going to call it the shoulder key. But the shoulder key is the key underneath escape and above the tab. And by doing that, holding Control and that, you can toggle your formula on and off. Really handy way of checking what formula you've got. So that first one there, H3 to H10, becomes I3 to I10, J3 to J10, and so on. They're like each other, but they're a wee bit different. Revert back to my creepy photo of the family. Think about your relatives are like you, but a bit different. No, I'm not going to say Norfolk, but there we go. So your aunties, your uncles, your relatives are like you, but a bit different. So your relative references are like each other, but a bit different. And they move along as they are. I'll just take the formulas back off. Obviously, we can then go vertically or horizontally, vertically that way. But if we want to add up Fred, Rosemary, and so on, same idea. Forget about the rest of them. Just look at Fred. Equals sum. And this time the range is horizontal. There we go. And using that little dot there, you can just pull it down. Also, particularly when we start using 15, 20, 25,000 rows of data, if your column is right next to the others, just double click it. And it'll fill through as well. All right. I don't think any of this is a particular surprise to anyone, but it's worthwhile going over. Average, if I wanted the average of the entire amount, we don't just have to look at vertical or horizontal ranges. It can be a whole range. So average or mean is equals average. There we go. And the range in this case is the whole lot. The median, whole range, and the mode is equal to mode. As I say, it doesn't matter if it's capitals or not, it'll work itself out. All right. Now, if for some reason I wanted to know how much VAT each of them has spent, try and get this little bit of logic in your head. I want to work out the VAT for each week. But what I want to do is I want to work out what happens to be in that cell, in this case 313, by what happens to be in this cell. It is an important bit of logic. We're not actually multiplying 313 times 20%. We're using what happens to be in those cells at a time. So it just equals that one, oops, beg your pardon, times asterisk that one, and it'll work it out for us. Now, I'm going to do this wrong. I know you're about to point out, but anyway, if I use my little fill handle there and drag it along, it's giving us zeros. And if I put my formula on, first one's right enough. It's taken the total of week 1 and multiplied it by what happened to be in Q2. That's where the 20% was. You'll see when I turn my formulas on, the 20% is automatically changed to 0.2, going back to our formats. We've formatted it as a percentage. So Excel in the background has thought, oh, well, if you want to format as a percentage, I'll divide by 100. It's just done it for us. However, as we moved along, H11, that one, is quite right. It's moved to I11, but the thing that we're multiplying it by has also moved. We don't want that to happen. As we get further along, obviously it doesn't work either. So the way to fix it, you choose the first formula, that one, and you know that's right. And remember your relatives. So your relatives are like you, but a bit different. You want some of them to change. So H11, we want that to change to I11, to J11, K11, and so on. But the Q2, we want to be absolutely fixed. Now, trick is, put your cursor in there. The way to do that is put your cursor within the one that you want to fix, and then its function, F4. If you're on a full-size keyboard, in other words, if you're on a desktop keyboard, you don't have to use the FN button because it's extended. If you're on a laptop, your keyboard's a bit more condensed. But by putting a $ in front of the Q and the 2, if I then drag that along, the Q2 is absolutely fixed all the way along there. We want H11 to change to I11, J11, K11, and so on, but we want Q2 to stay fixed. So if I then take my formulas back off, it's worked itself out. So my daft little pictures and things like that, remember your relatives, like you, but a bit different. Absolute references are absolutely fixed. Now, the reason I said we weren't multiplying 313 by 20%. We were multiplying what happened to be in that cell by what happened to be in that cell. Let's say our Lord and Leader, whichever Prime Minister's in charge at the time, there's no point saying because it'll have changed by the time you read this, goes out one night and thinks, you know what, VAT is a bit high. Let's change it from 20% to 7.5%. Everything updates. And the point is, you want to get in the habit of whether you're building spreadsheets, Power BI dashboards, everything links to each other. You want as few keyed in variables as possible. And if everything then links to each other and it's set up properly, computers don't make mistakes. We do, but computers don't make mistakes. We can't get it wrong. So by making Excel or Power BI or Python, whatever it is you're using, do all the heavy lifting, you can't go wrong. If I put that back to the current VAT, back again. I'm sure none of that was particularly surprising to some of you, but it's worthwhile just running over. All right, so what we're going to do is We've got then Excel for Data Science starter file. And download that. Please get in the habit of saving these things into your OneDrive, because you're going to use that to work through these 2 short Excel videos here. It's going to cover a little bit more absolute references, formatting, conditional formatting, things like that. Even those of you who are Excel experts, it doesn't do any harm to go through there. As I said on there, there are a couple of things within there that I haven't come across before until I went to a course which this is based upon. So I would advise going through them. Let us know how you get on. All right, thanks. That'll do for just now. Bye.